What's going on, everyone? I am just a typical, average American here today to react to a very bizarre sounding news headline that says a Canadian trying to cross the border. He says that a U.S. customs officer made him give a DNA sample. Huh? Am I the only one that reads that and just thinks, what are we doing? What on earth are we doing here? My dad told me recently that when he was in college, he didn't even need a passport when he would drive his car into Canada. But now we're demanding like DNA samples or what? And I've never heard of that being necessary, and I can't imagine why that would be necessary. And it's like, just thinking about that is like, where? How do they do that? What from where? Like, not to get too weird and graphic about it, but I don't know. It's a clown world we're living in. It's a circus world. It's what it is. It's what we're living in now, I guess. So today, I want to check this out and learn about what exactly happened to this poor Canadian at the U.S. border. So let's take a look.
And now we want to tell you a story about one Ontario man who tried to enter the United States to attend a No Kings rally in Michigan last year. He was turned away by border officials, all right, but not before, he says, officers forced him to give a DNA sample.
And yeah, especially this word in particular, forced. What do you mean? We're forcing people, like, against their will, like, to give DNA samples? Like, what are we even gonna do with that stuff? Like, what? I have so many questions about this, and it's like, first of all, why did this random Canadian guy get turned away? That's already, like, annoying. And sounds like he was attending some kind of, like, U.S. government or Trump protest. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. That would be pretty disturbing if that had anything to do with why he was turned away because of what he wanted to protest. That'd be insane. But that's just speculation. What we know is that, like, he was forced to give a DNA sample. Did he have the option to just decline and go home? What are we gonna do if he doesn't give his DNA sample? Which I've heard in some recent news stuff that we have sort of amped up our how much we're doing at the US Canada border, like how strict we're being. We're making people like sometimes take photos or give fingerprints, I believe, and but I've never heard of this having to give DNA. That's like a major step above what already was kind of ridiculous. Like, so what's going on? Like, as an American, like I'm getting worked up about this, and it's not even like us. It's us who are doing it, and in a different way. That makes me very mad.
Now, this story has drawn a lot of attention from the public, also from lawmakers who are now demanding answers from the Trump administration. Mark
Yeah.
Harpsall is here with me in studio. You've been looking into this story. So what exactly happened here?
So, Natasha, 68-year-old Kevin Larson, he lives in Kincardine, Ontario. As you mentioned, he was trying to cross the border. This was last October, 2025, to go to a No Kings protest. He figured that he might have some trouble getting across the border just for the main reason that he was going there for. He didn't...
I mean, I just have to say, here in the United States, the right to protest, and it's really like almost, we used to think of it as like an obligation, like of people to like protest and speak up, and we're all about like free speech, and those are really, those are supposed to be really American ideals. So no, I don't want to just gloss over that. If this Canadian guy was turned away for wanting to attend a protest in the US, that's disgusting. That's unforgivable. That's horrible. That shouldn't be happening.
He didn't think that what happened to him would end up happening, though. He says he was eventually held for 3 hours when he crossed the border. He was sent for a secondary inspection.
On what? Okay, so there's the main thing, like the big, like headline, had to give his DNA. It was like, huh? Like what? Had to? What? Just, bleh. I can't. Just thinking about it makes me stop speaking English for a moment there. That's already crazy enough, but like he was detained for 3 hours. He was in secondary, like had to be searched, or what's all that about? Like that's what is this?
When he got into the office, his phone was searched, his car was searched, and in the end, they denied him entry. He says customs officers then told him he had to provide a DNA sample via a cheek swab. When he...
Okay. All right. Calm down, everyone. Calm down. It's a cheek swab, okay? You really... I don't know what you were all thinking it was. It's a cheek swab, all right? Relax. All right. Still, it's like... I don't know if they have the answer. I know these are like journalists and stuff. I don't know if they can give any insight into, I'm American and I've never heard of our government doing this. That, like, people get worked up when they think you're like capturing your phone activity and your data. But your DNA, what are we doing with that? Why? It's just weird and like, is that legal? Like, and I've never heard of that.
He refused to do that. That's when things took a turn that, quite frankly, to some might sound a little bit scary.
Oh boy, I'm already worked up. What do you mean? What do you mean? This gets worse. What? So, good for this guy, by the way. The U.S. government's like turning you away for not being happy with what they're doing, which is insane and embarrassing for us that we can't take criticism or like allow people to protest. That's insane to me, actually. That's really sad. Good for this guy when they're like, give me a cheek swab of your DNA, and he's like, no, because it'd be really easy in that situation to be scared, to be like, especially if you've heard some of the stories about like people getting detained at the border and then like something's wrong with their visa and they're like sent to some weird ICE facility in Texas. I don't want to go off on some tangent about all that, but I've done a video on that stuff. Like Canadians who were like detained at border crossings and then like for one reason or another ended up in ICE detention centers. I don't think that's typically what's happening. Like that's thankfully, sort of a fringe scenario. Not fringe enough, but I don't think that's what's happening here. And that's already scary enough. And for this guy to not be afraid of any of that and be like, no, I'm not giving you your insane cheek DNA swab. No. Good for him. I like that.
Said, no, I'm not going to give you the DNA sample.
Huh.
Eventually, a supervisor took me into a private room, and he actually read the regulation that he was citing to ask me for DNA. And it's...
Why have I never heard of this in my life before? What regulation? Why would we need your DNA?
a charge, if you're found guilty, sir, is a maximum jail sentence of 1 year.
They threatened him with a year of jail if he didn't, if he refused to do the DNA swab. This is coercion. This is intimidation. This is threats. This is insane. This is so sad. This is so I've been talking about in some of my videos like the actual serious decline of the United States for many reasons. And this is such a wow. This to me like really encapsulates why the US is declining, going down. Like this is insane that we are doing this. And I think a lot more Americans need to be made aware that we're doing stuff like this, because I wasn't aware. I try to keep up with a lot of this stuff, and I didn't know about this.
Now, not wanting to be charged, not wanting to be jailed, and Larson also says that he has family in the U.S. that he wants to continue to go visit. He eventually relented. He gave a DNA swab and was eventually denied access to the country.
Totally understandable. Like, good for him for putting up a fight, but it's like, then the man is coming at you, like, with a year of jail. It's terrifying. It makes us sound like a third world country or worse, that the rule of law just doesn't matter. We can just make it up. Like, why? Oh, we take DNA now because we feel like, and you get to go to jail if you don't. And then if you do all that and comply with that, you get kicked out and you can leave. What?
And sent home. But he obviously wants answers as to why this happened, why he was made to do that, and he wants that DNA swab scrubbed from the DOJ FBI records.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Like, I keep saying, I don't know what they plan on doing with that. Are they going to do an ancestry DNA report? Are they going to tell him what % of Scottish DNA he has in him? Like, what is the point of this? But I totally understand there's a lot of people who don't want their like DNA report on a file somewhere, just from like a privacy standpoint, from just like that's your right not to like have the US government have that held over you.
Okay, so in terms of a response or clarification from authorities, where are we?
Our colleagues at CBC Windsor did reach out to the Customs and Border Patrol Agency in the U.S. to try to get a response. They didn't get one in time for publishing their story. Hours after they published that story, though, the CBP did reply to them with a written statement. Here's what they had to say, quote, On October 18th, 2025, a 68-year-old Canadian citizen arrived at the Blue Water Bridge. In secondary inspection, the alien gave inconsistent answers for his reason for traveling to the U.S. He was deemed inadmissible.
The alien. The alien. It's a Canadian guy trying to visit the US for a brief time. That's what it's not an alien. Stop. Just stop. What is this statement? I'm glad that they gave a statement, but he gave inconsistent answers for why he's traveling to the US. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't know. I wasn't there.
And allowed to withdraw his application for admission and allowed to voluntarily depart the U.S.
Was he allowed to voluntarily depart? They threatened him with jail if he involuntarily gave his DNA, right? So that's not true.
DNA sample was collected in accordance with the law, DNA Fingerprint Act of 2005, due to this immigration violation. But
in accordance with the law from 2005? There's no way. Why has no one ever talked about this ever? Why have I never heard about this before? Why has no one said or complained about this? If this is so common, we've been doing it for 21 years? Yeah, right. What? This just sounds made up.
But there's some question as to whether he really needed to have the DNA swab done because he didn't have any previous unlawful entries into the U.S. He had no criminal record. So there are some questions as to whether that should happen. One of the people...
Okay. So, all right. I guess that makes more sense. Maybe there's some law that allows DNA collection if that is relevant or if some kind of criteria is met. They're testing you for drugs or something, that makes any kind of sense. I think the big problem here is they're just citing some law from 20 years ago to make this make any kind of sense, and it just doesn't. This, like they said, this guy had no criminal history. This is exactly the kind of person we should be letting into the United States. I mean, he just so happens to be attending like a anti-Trump rally, and I'm sure that, I mean, now that I know all the facts, I'm sure that played a role in him being denied.
Questioning that is Debbie Dingell. She's a Democrat representative for an area of Michigan who heard this story and was incensed.
Yeah.
So I had no idea why they were treating him so terribly at the border. Why?
Oh, it's because he said he was attending the anti-Trump, the No Kings thing, right? To me, or maybe it's just because he's Canadian, but this isn't happening to like every Canadian, right? Like, I know there's a lot of tension between our two countries and even animosity in a lot of, and from the US towards Canada, and but I don't think this is happening like all the time, or we'd hear about it happening all the time. I think this guy in particular, they just didn't like him for what he was intending to do, or it's hard to come up with any other reason, really. He had no criminal record, or
Why or what statute would they even be able to collect DNA under?
Absolutely.
How are they using it? And quite frankly, it bothered me even broader because Canada's our neighbor and our friend.
She and another representative have sent letters to Homeland
oh, that's a U.S. representative that's upset. Well, good. Okay. Yeah, any American hearing this should be upset. It's that is the only way to interpret this. This is not okay. Like,
Security, the state and Justice Departments demanding answers as of Monday. So far, no reply.
Okay, Mark
No
Carpasal,
reply.
thanks so much.
Thank you.
well, I'm glad they reported about this. I wouldn't have even known. This is not the kind of stuff that makes like American news headlines, or so I would have never known. So most Americans have no idea that we're doing this crazy stuff, and it needs to be known. Because this got me worked up. It's offensive, really. Our government is ruining America's reputation. And now we're just like committing literal like crimes in the open. Like, it's bad. It's really bad. I don't know what's going to become of this story, or if anyone's going to be held accountable, or maybe that guy should sue someone, or get his. He just wants his DNA back. At this point, I mean, this is a crazy story, with no real resolution at this point, sadly. But it's good to be aware of this happening. Oh my God. So, anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like, or leave a comment with your thoughts about this whole situation. It's scary. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canadian things that I've never seen before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.